It is the John Phillips Show. It's Randy Wang here. Johnny is on vacation. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. I knew I was going to do it. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. It is budget season in not just the state of California, but all of the major cities in California that are trying to figure out how to do more with a lot less. At some point, we'll be getting the May revise from Gavin Newsom, which might show that there's not any money to bail out cities like Los Angeles or San Francisco or Oakland or San Diego. But let's see if I can just do this off the top of my head. Los Angeles is facing nearly $1 billion budget deficit. San Francisco is facing nearly $1 billion budget deficit. San Diego is facing a $250 million budget deficit. San Jose, I believe, is around that number, $250 million. And Oakland, which was at $100 million, is now at $250 million. So there's a lot of talks about what needs to be cut. And unfortunately, in the city of Los Angeles, LA Mayor Karen Bass proposed a budget that decided the things we need to cut in the city of LA are street services, animal shelters, and all of the classified employees who assist the LAPD, not the sworn officers, but the people working in the crime lab. Well, there is one very vocal member of the LA City Council who does not like that idea and is going to try to do everything she can to make sure those aren't the things that we cut. And she sat down with Conan Nolan of NBC4 for his incredible show, News Conference, which, by the way, did you know that Sunday morning show on NBC4 in LA is the longest running political talk show in the state of California. It's been going on for a very long time, and Conan is great. Tracy Park is one of the few common sense members of the LA City Council. Let's hear what she has to say about Karen Bass's idea to cut 400 civilian positions from the LAPD.
And then we get...
This is NBC4.
And then we get to the crisis facing municipal government in Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles facing a $1 billion budget shortfall, the worst we have seen since the Great Recession. All sorts of things.
And what's funny is the city's budget is 2 to 3 times larger than it was when the city went broke in 2008 or 2009. So the numbers that we're talking about here, we've never heard of before, being $1 billion in the hole. It's also very interesting that so many major cities in California got these huge infusions of cash. When Biden took office in 2021, the first thing he did was pass the American Rescue Plan. And the American Rescue Plan gave all of this money to school districts, to local municipalities, to transit districts, all for COVID recovery. And in the last 5 years, budgets have blown up. The COVID money is finally running out. And now every major city in the state has a huge shortfall that they're not sure exactly what they're going to do here.
All sorts of things are on the table, including the elimination of over 400 positions at the Los Angeles Police Department. Tracy Park is a member of the Los Angeles City Council. She represents District 11, which is the Pacific Palisades, Marina del Rey, West Los Angeles.
And Venice.
And you had a news conference this week where you said, listen, we know we got a problem. Don't cut these positions at the LAPD. Why?
Because cutting those essential positions is a risk to public safety in Los Angeles.
Why is that?
Well, it will mean that cases go uninvestigated, unsolved, cops will be pulled off the streets, and criminals will remain free.
These are crime scene photographers.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're looking to do here in order to balance the budget. And yes, it is a fact that the largest department in the budget is police. And I know there are some people that love to make that their hill to die on, that's so unfair and not equitable.
Because we are the defund the police people, right?
But the police budget is the largest budget of every single city, as it should be. The city should be in charge of public safety, that's police and fire, and making sure the roads are paved. There are 30 other departments that might be deemed a little unnecessary.
And criminals will remain free.
These are crime scene photographers. These are people who analyze the data that end up in court.
These are the folks who actually conduct the investigations and make our police department function.
Think about Dexter Morgan from the fantastic Showtime show Dexter. He wasn't a sworn police officer, but outside of his day job as a serial killer, he worked as a blood splatter analyst for the Miami Metro PD. That's the kind of job we'd be cutting here.
Cases will go unaddressed entirely, or police officers will be pulled out of their job duties and assignments to cover the work. Firing these 400 highly skilled professionals is not going to reduce the workload at LAPD.
By the way, it is interesting that right before Karen Bass unveiled the budget, she has this meeting with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles where she talks about making sure that she saved all of the programs they care about, including the ex-con gang member crisis intervention worker, whatever that means, community intervention worker, and she defends how she gave them a 50% raise from $40,000 to $60,000 because if we don't pay them that much, they'll just go back to a life of crime.
And it's inconsistent with the voter mandate that we heard in November of last year to solve the crime crisis in L.A.
And but listen, they have to solve.
And there was, L.A.'s an interesting place. Because throughout the state of California in the 2024 election, there was a mandate. Prop 36, despite the objections of people like Gavin Newsom and Scott Wiener, passed overwhelmingly. Very few big city mayors supported it, although Matt Mahan got in front of that thing. London Breed got in front of that thing, but it wasn't enough to save her. But Karen Bass didn't get behind it, but it still passed here overwhelmingly. George Gascon got kicked out of office with a margin that is, it still makes me smile how huge it was.
Quite frankly.
And if the two recalls against him weren't run by grifters, that thing could have been taken care of a long time ago.
We got some wobbly knees allies.
But in that same election, where you saw noticeable gains in the Republican Party, you saw noticeable gains with 36, you saw George Gascon get out, L.A. County voters voted overwhelmingly for Measure A, which doubled the tax on homeless spending. Great job. And we elected even more members of the Democrat Socialists of America, Los Angeles, to the L.A. City Council. Notably, Isabel Jurado, although that one's really an outlier because she was running against Kevin De Leon.
Quite frankly.
And Kevin De Leon was going to lose no matter who he ran against.
It is hot as hell.
But still, that caucus got bigger last year.
To solve the crime crisis in L.A.
And but listen,
Tracy Park is in the super minority of members of the city council that are pro-police.
To solve the crime crisis in L.A.
And but listen, they have to solve this budget crisis. Where, if not here, where do you cut?
Well, my approach to this would be keep the essentials, cut the bloat, and demand accountability.
Oh, there's our favorite word, although I do like cut the bloat.
Accountability.
Because you can't tell me that in a budget of the city of Los Angeles, which is $12 to $13 billion, billion with a B, that there isn't a whole lot of money being wasted. We know just very recently that for years, Karen Bass and the city of Los Angeles, in fact, it's actually Karen Bass, Eric Garcetti, and Antonio Villaraigosa, all were funding programs through the Gang Reduction Intervention Program, the GRID department, and that money was going towards a nonprofit that was supposed to get kids out of the gang life and get them into youth sports. And it was a front for an actual criminal gang. There's some bloat.
We have programs and services that are inefficient, that are duplicative of work being done by other agencies. We've spent billions of dollars year after year on homelessness and gotten nowhere.
At your news conference this last...
I love that she said that. It's rare a member who's inside the city, who sees how the sausage is made, who has to make deals with the people in charge, will say what we all know.
Billions of dollars year after year on homelessness and gotten nowhere.
And that's the thing. And it's interesting. Kenneth Mejia, who's another DSA guy, he is the LA City Controller, and he loves to put out all of these maps and all of these bar graphs and show you where money is being spent, how much money in your budget is going towards this. And I commend that. That is an important thing of the job, is being transparent. But when he shows you these bar graphs of the budget of the city of Los Angeles, they don't show you where the homeless money is. The homeless money is lumped into special funds. They don't show you how much money we're spending on homelessness, which is, by the way, $900 million just in the city of Los Angeles. $900 million. And we don't know what any of that money actually did. You could take a lot of that money and put it towards filling the holes so you don't have to lay off the street services people. You don't have to lay off the civilian staff of LAPD, and you don't have to lay off the people working at the animal shelters.
We've spent billions of dollars year after year on homelessness and gotten nowhere.
At your news conference this last week, you had 2 other council members with you. There are 15.
I believe she was with Tim McCosker and Monica Rodriguez. Maybe John Lee. John Lee's probably there, too.
There are 15.
That's we like the idea of police caucus.
There are members of the council who are not with you on this. There are some members of the council that campaign getting rid of the LAPD.
Specifically, Ulysses Hernandez.
You can't get well in a cell.
Hugo Soto Martinez.
Let's criminalize catalytic converters. Let's criminalize copper.
Nithya Raman, Isabel Urado, and Marquisi Harris Dawson, the president of the city council, likes to play around with them, as well as Katie Young Yaroslavsky.
There are some members of the council that campaign getting rid of the LAPD. They would say, listen, you're lucky we're not cutting uniformed officers. Do you have the vote?
Although cutting the staff that supports the officers does cut the officers because it means less officers on the streets.
Do you have the votes to restore these positions?
I think that we will be able to hopefully keep as much of this intact as possible. But you're right. There are members of this council that would like to see LAPD not only downsized, but entirely defunded and abolished. But that is.
I love that she'll speak out against that. Tracy Park. By the way, I listen to a lot of local politicians. She is one of the few that almost every time answers a question directly and doesn't do politician speak. She'll do it occasionally because sometimes you have to if there's something that you get in trouble for answering. But she sounds like a real person. But
entirely defunded and abolished. But that is not consistent with what a majority of Angelenos want.
How concerned are you that the Department of Justice, the U.S. government, is thinking about cutting off aid to LA because of the sanctuary city status?
Okay, this is also interesting because we know the budgets, not only the state of California, but very specifically cities like LA, San Diego, San Francisco, their budgets are being massively threatened because there's a threat from the federal government because they're defying federal law with sanctuary policies and not turning over people with ICE detainers to the federal government, that we could see huge budget cuts, specifically in law enforcement. And that could be another $1 billion budget shortfall for a place like San Francisco or Los Angeles.
Well, it's hard to predict what will or won't happen or what will or won't come out of Washington, D.C. But yes, we depend on federal grants for many, many aspects of governance in L.A.
We'll talk about police, though. A lot of people out there would be shocked to find out how many uniformed officers are paid by Department of Justice money from Washington.
That's right. And on many, many critical aspects of policing in Los Angeles, from protecting our critical infrastructure, working across state and federal platforms on multi-agency task forces, that work is absolutely essential. And if the funding goes away, LA doesn't participate.
And the issue here is that so far, you haven't seen any compliance. They're obviously taking the federal government to court on this, but you haven't seen any capitulation from L.A., San Diego, San Francisco, Oakland of, okay, we're going to back away from these policies. You've got an entire sanctuary state that Gavin says it's super legal. Don't you worry about it. So we're looking for a big budget fight all year long, it looks like.
Is the council up for this, John?
I sure hope so.
No, I mean, seriously, because there are a lot of people on it that have very little experience with budgets.
Yeah, you know who's on the budget committee? Ulysses Hernandez.
Yes!
They have no experience.
And Katie Yaroslavsky.
They have no experience with recessions, and that's what we're headed for. And this budget, by the way, comes before the recession.
And I worry that we have a history of budgeting based on slogans and ideology.
That was a direct shot at Ulysses.
Because we are the defund the police people, right?
I might be stirring the pot a little, but I have to. It's what Johnny would do.
rather than on performance-driven programs and policies.
They would say, though, that you're engaged in sloganeering by saying, well, we have to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Specifically, where do you see elements of city governance that needs to be addressed but is getting a pass?
Well, I think there is a lot of bloat and price gouging baked into our budget as is.
Ooh, price gouging. I haven't heard this one before.
There are multiple opportunities to reduce those redundancies and inefficiencies, but I think the homelessness budget is one of the primary areas where we need to get the spending under control.
She's so right. And no one ever wants to say this. No one wants to turn the spigot off because usually the nonprofits are the benefactors of all of that money, and they're the ones that help get you in office. But holy cow, the amount of money that we waste on homelessness, especially Karen Bass's Inside Safe program, which has only worsened the problem in the city of L.A. because, as we've talked about all show long, housing first doesn't work. Heck, you had the squatter house that burned down, and what was it next to? That's right, homeless housing that was put there just a couple of years ago by the city of Los Angeles.
Because it's not working?
It's not working, and it hasn't worked. And if we don't change it, it won't work.
She's one of 15 votes, so it's not looking great, but public opinion really does matter on this. And if you don't want to see those LAPD positions cut, you got to make your voice heard. The city council was fairly responsive fairly quickly when the news came out that Karen Bass's budget cuts could close animal shelters in the city of Los Angeles. And people organized and people protested. People showed up at the public comment hearing, but they also made several calls, sent emails, sent letters to their members of the city council to the point where within like 24 hours of that going out, the mayor puts out a statement saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I was never going to close the homeless shelters.
No.
Excuse me, the animal shelters. And members of the city council, including Tracy Park, including Bob Blumenfeld, Tim McCosker, and a few others, vowed they would find the money to make sure they don't close the animal shelters, which is like $5 million, which is nothing in a budget that is $13 billion. Johnny's on vacation. It's Randy Wang flying solo. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. You can always email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And who do we get an email from here? Harry writes in, it says, Randy, how much money does the city of Los Angeles spend on illegal aliens, whether it's education, healthcare, probably tens of millions of dollars? That's part of the big problem. The rest is wasteful and corrupt management of our tax dollars. And even though we have things like a LA controller, we don't know specifically where a lot of this money goes and how a lot of this money is wasted and how even money that's allocated to certain departments also gets siphoned away for homelessness. Hey, if you ever miss an episode of the show, maybe you want to catch up. Maybe you want to hear, you heard Holly Mitchell's name today.
Quite frankly.
And you want to know exactly who Holly Mitchell is and why she's been so destructive, not only in the state of California, but in specifically Los Angeles County, where she's been supervisor for the last few years. Well, search for The John Phillips Show, and you'll find a lot of Holly Mitchell.
We have to be mindful of that.
Search for The John Phillips Show on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
Chilly Willy.
And you'll be able to download all the episodes of The John Phillips Show, including ones that talk about Holly Wally Chilly Willy.
Chilly Willy. From.
It is a podcast, though, so while we can entertain you with your ears, we can't feed you.
We're doing whatever we can to get people to come. Tacos, balloons.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. It's not just the city of Los Angeles that's facing a budget crisis. It's San Francisco. It's Oakland. It's San Jose. It's even in America's finest city, the city of San Diego. And Todd Gloria, the mayor of San Diego, is finding some very interesting places to cut the budget. He's decided to take away all the fun things that happen in San Diego, including fire pits and beach bathrooms. That'll do it. For more, here is ABC 10 in San Diego.
It could soon be more difficult to use public bathrooms and fire pits at beaches and parks in the city of San Diego.
This is what I call a short-sighted budget proposal. Because if you take away the fire pits, it's not going to stop people from starting fires on the beaches. Now they'll just be way more out of control. If you take away the beach bathrooms, well, the beaches in San Diego are going to look like my cat's litter box.
The city is considering closing the restrooms from November through March. We're talking about popular areas such as La Jolla, Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, and more. It's part of Mayor Todd Gloria's draft budget.
Let's take all the fun things that people come to San Diego for, the beautiful, incredible weather, beaches that you can go to all year long, and make it so you can't use the potty. You got to go in the ocean.
It's part of Mayor Todd Gloria's draft budget, which aims to address an expected $258 million shortfall. He presented his budget proposal to City Council last week, and we've reported extensively on the funding cuts it includes. ABC 10 News reporter Danny Miskell explains how cutting restroom access and fire pits could save money.
And, you know, this was another thing that was being talked about in San Francisco, although this was part of Daniel Lurie saying he wants a 10% cut across the board, and I understand that. But one of the things that was being considered to be cut there was public bathrooms. And if there's one city that needs working, clean public bathrooms all day long, all year round, it's San Francisco. But you will end up spending so much more money cleaning up you-know-what if you don't give people a proper place to put it away.
Explains how cutting restroom access and fire pits could save money.
It's saving $135,000 a year, worth getting rid of all the fire pits here in Mission Beach.
That doesn't sound like a lot. That seems like a really, really, really tiny cut that's not part of the structural deficit. Not only that, but the fire pits encourage people to come to the beach, and it can be done well. Bolsa Chica and Huntington Beach, that's a good old time with those fire pits.
This is something that the city is proposing at the moment as a way to help reduce some of its deficit. But here's what the community thinks.
Nah, not $135,000.
Rogelio Huerta believes that beach fire pits are good for businesses at the beach. So he's not entirely convinced scrapping them is a good idea.
Maybe.
Yeah, all the people that are selling Otter Pops, or they're selling sodas, or, you know, maybe it's a beer if you know what you're doing. They depend on people going to the beaches, and if you're going to the beach at night, you need fire because the beach is really cold.
So he's not entirely convinced scrapping them is a good idea.
Maybe you invest a little more on managing the resources and prove that they're not efficient before you take away the public's benefits.
Beyond the savings, Mayor Todd Gloria...
Yeah, there's got to be some glut that doesn't include taking away things that people like. Especially when you're known as one of the big beach cities in the entire state.
Benefits.
Beyond the savings, Mayor Todd Gloria's office tells me it could reduce noise levels at night, illegal activity, and costs for city workers to clean up the pits.
Okay. How rowdy is it getting down there?
The trash issue is why Christian Barroso is in favor of getting rid of the fire pits.
Generally speaking, I don't think it's very safe having these fire pits around.
The city says...
I will say, if you have a public beach and there are available trash cans and people are littering, go after them as tough as you can. Double, triple the littering fees, incarcerate them. If it's a situation where there's littering on the beach because the trash cans never get picked up, that's a whole other issue. But yes, don't take away the beach for all the people that are responsible with their pizza boxes because a couple of people don't. That's not fair. That's not, to use one of their favorite terms, equitable.
The city says they are weighing possible drawbacks to this proposal. They know removing the fire pits could lead to illegal fires.
Yes. People are still going to be expecting that they can have their bonfires, and now instead of having a safe place to do it, they're going to start bonfires that are a little more out of control.
Mayor Todd Gloria has also...
And you have to spend more money now to enforce all of the people who want to start fires that they're not supposed to there.
Mayor Todd Gloria has also proposed changes to bathroom operations at beaches and parks.
And not all bathrooms...
Wait, parks too? Bad idea. Otherwise, All the money that you're going to save from the bathroom, you're going to have to spend on park rangers with a pooper scooper.
At beaches and parks.
And not all bathrooms, but Mayor Todd Gloria has proposed to close down a portion of bathrooms across a ton of public parks just during the winter season.
How much money could that save? And this is a place where it doesn't matter what the seasons are. People frequent the beaches and parks year round.
Just during the winter.
I have done Ocean Beach, the dog beach. I've done that in the summer. I've done that in the fall. I've done that in the winter. Doesn't matter. It's San Diego.
Just during the winter season. He says this reduction would save the city more than $1 million every year.
Gloria's office tells me
it's worth it. More bathrooms are always the answer. Clean bathrooms are always the answer.
Every year.
Gloria's office tells me because there are less people at the parks and beaches from November to March, not as many bathrooms are needed. The majority will stay open. For example, they tell me that at Mission Bay Park, only 13 bathrooms will close out of 28.
That's like half.
Out of 28.
Because it'll help, balance the budget. And as far as the other cuts that they might alleviate, like the fire, the police, or any resources that are more important.
Danny Miskell, ABC 10 News.
And I love that idea. Okay, well, we want to make sure we don't cut our essential services. There has to be other bloat in the budget. There is for every single one of these cities, and there is for the state as well. And you know what? It's $135,000 a year to keep the fire pits and the beaches in San Diego. How much is Todd Gloria making? And how about we chop off $135,000 from his salary? How about all the members of the San Diego City Council, all the top staffers? When are we ever going to talk about pay cuts for the bureaucrats? Because they're making a lot more money than the average citizen in the place they represent. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. Let's go to Bert in Santa Rosa. Bert, hello.
Hi, guys. This is Bert from Santa Rosa, and my question is...
Oh, no, Bert. Fortunately, your phone cut out. Wait, Bert, start over. Your phone cut out as soon as you said my question is.
I'm asking how much will the removal cost be, and will that cost be transparent? I think it'll be way more than $100,000.
That's a really great point. How much is it going to cost to remove the fire pits? They have to contract that out. I'm sure it'll be a no-bid process. You're totally right. The cost of getting rid of them might be more than keeping them.
For sure. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. If you'd like to email us, you could do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Vince writes in on budget cuts. Have you ever noticed that cuts are always punitive? Cutting the fat means creating discomfort. The next step is to appeal to the public to fund a bond to restore these services. This has been the MO from politicians as far back as I can remember. It still works because there's not much pushback. Vince, and you're totally right about this, because we're going to see a lot of support for a fire bond on ballot measures next year. And yes, the firefighters deserve every single penny. But what happens is we vote for a bond that's supposed to make sure the firefighters have everything that they need. And then the city takes all the money they were going to spend on the firefighters and spends it on something completely unnecessary. Now, as we talk about budgets, and especially bloated city budgets, one does have to ask the question, is part of the problem that some of these cities are just too big? When it's Los Angeles, yes. Is Los Angeles City too big? Yes. Is Los Angeles County too big? Yes. A county of 10 million people, and it is run by 5 supervisors who each are responsible for 2 million people. City of LA with a population of 4 million people. These cities are just a little too big for the lack of government that we actually get that works. Well, there's one neighborhood in San Diego that has just taken the first step to secede from the city and become their own city. And that is the beautiful part of San Diego, La Jolla. For more on La Jolla taking the first steps to become its own city, here is NBC7 in San Diego.
La Jolla's latest attempt to secede from the city of San Diego just took another step forward. The group behind the effort got confirmation they do have enough signatures to continue their campaign.
Every time I hear a story like this, it just makes me very irritated that I was not old enough to vote when there was a case for the Valley seceding from the city of Los Angeles. 2 million people live in the city of Los Angeles, and all the services go to the other side of the hill.
But Mayor Todd Gloria is questioning whether some of those signatures are valid. NBC7's Omari Fleming explains why.
Oh, don't start this nonsense. You can say, I don't think it's a good idea, but don't start being like, they collected fake signatures. Just stop that.
Some of the La Jollans that are pushing to break away from the city of San Diego say a split would be mutually beneficial for both sides. In fact, they say a break from the city of San Diego would allow the city to take better care of what they call its underserved communities.
Yeah, but then they're not getting all that tax revenue from, the hotel taxes of places like the Lodge at Torrey Pines, the nicest hotel I've ever stayed at.
Relief. It's like, finally, this is done.
Members of the Association for the City of La Jolla, or ACLJ, are exhaling after getting more than the 6,750 signatures needed to start the process of becoming its own city.
We would like to make this the jewel it was many years ago. It's lost a lot of its luster, and we just want to fix it for everybody.
Despite the win, the process far from over, and San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria vowing to explore legal action against the Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO.
That's one funny name. Gloria, by suing the residents that want to do this, is only calling more attention to it and maybe even motivating more people to do it. Look, I don't know how things work in the county of San Diego in some of those smaller cities, but in the county of Los Angeles, the cities that are not Los Angeles are way better run. The worst government is unincorporated Los Angeles. That actually outranks L.A. as just awful, awful government.
It's the county office that oversees the creation of new cities. LAFCO reversed the registrar of voters' decision that some of the ACLJ's petition signatures were invalid.
They got to stop this. Whether it was the recalls of Gavin, the recalls of Gascon, how many people do you think are wasting time putting down fake signatures for a ballot measure?
Mayor Gloria calling that decision outrageous, saying LAFCO's interpretation is too broad, allowing for incorrect and incomplete addresses that were rejected by the registrar.
So what, they put Ave instead of Avenue and you want to reject that?
The Local Agency Formation Commission follows a different part of the code, the state law. I respect the mayor. I know Todd. He's a great guy, but he's wrong.
A La Jolla secession has been talked about for years, but never gotten this far.
Balance.
I'll be honest. I thought La Jolla was its own city, but people make those mistakes all the time. There are people that have lived in the San Fernando Valley for years and years and years and years and years that think Encino is a city. It's not. There's even a neighborhood called Panorama City. Not a city. It's a neighborhood. It's so confusing.
A La Jolla secession has been talked about for years, but never gotten this far.
Balance new development with preserving our heritage.
Diane Sher.
Oh, that's what this is about. If you're out of the city of San Diego, you don't have to deal with San Diego's insane density bonus laws, where if you've got a property, a single-family home, you can build an ADU, except it's not an ADU. It's an apartment building as tall as you want, as long as half the units are affordable housing, and you don't have to build any parking. Yes, I'd love to make sure my city was not part of that.
Diane shared a laundry list of things she says La Jollans can do better by themselves, including fixing roads like Pearl and Cabrillo, as well as other infrastructure problems. Fixes they say the city of San Diego would no longer have to pay for, allowing the mayor to concentrate his focus on underserved communities like South San Diego that flooded last year.
Or, the prostitutes in Barrio Logan.
We think we can take that burden away from the city for our infrastructure and save them money and save them liability and make La Jolla and the city of San Diego better for everyone.
I love the pitch, but we know what would happen here. There's a lot of tax base in La Jolla that they would get their own tax base because they needed to create their own city government, but that's a lot of money that the city of San Diego would lose. That is one of those places where that city is spending less than they take in because you don't have to deal with a lot of crime in La Jolla. But, Yeah, I don't think they're going to do this without fighting. As nice of an idea as it is, I can see why Gloria's suing over it, even though I think that adds more attention to this than he wants.
La Jolla generates nearly $84 million in revenue for the city of San Diego, according to the ACLJ's preliminary fiscal analysis.
How much of that is the lodge at Torrey Pines? That place is awesome.
But LAFCO says any split has to be revenue neutral for San Diego, meaning
the city of San Diego doesn't lose a dime.
In fact, they argue the city could potentially make money by contracting out emergency services. Omari Fleming, NBC7.
So they would pay for the same SDPD and the same SDFD. Okay.
Again, there are still a number of steps that need to be taken before La Jolla could incorporate. LAFCO will now start drafting a final certified financial analysis. Ultimately, though, this really will be put to a vote for all San Diegans.
Is this the right answer? I don't know. But I will say, as someone that has lived in L.A. County his whole life, the incorporated cities of L.A. are run way better than the city of L.A. or unincorporated L.A. I still kick myself that I moved out of Burbank. Sure, it's boring and everything closes at 10, but that city was clean and that city was safe. Thank you all so much for listening. It's a pleasure to do this for you every day. Johnny's back on Monday, but I'll be here tomorrow from noon to 3 for another episode of The John Phillips Show.